forward to it. What did you? Oh,
okay, we're on air. All right, everyone. Hello. We're back for another Beer Analysis 101, and we're getting super fucking seasonal here yet again. We got ourselves a pumpkin ale. We're going to be doing the Saint Ambroise pumpkin ale, sitting at 5% alcohol by volume, and it has 18 IBUs. That's totally not a thing. It is classified as either a fruit vegetable beer or a spice herb vegetable beer. As you can see, Nick has a growler of it. He got lucky when he went into his local establishment today. He found he could get it on tap in growlers, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. I'll introduce the panel here from my left to right. First, we have the wildly pigmentless albino himself, Chad McGee. How you doing, sir?
Oh, just peachy keen, good sir. Just peachy keen.
Now we have the true in the basement. We have Jamie. How you doing, sir?
Good. I'm pumped to try this beer.
I see what you did there.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, everyone laughed. They were all just muted.
Okay. Sorry.
That's what it was. Okay, and next we have in the Tokyo Drift himself, Gregory. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Are we doing pumpkin tonight?
Shut the fuck up.
Yes,
you can
sir.
you can mute yourself again. Now we have on the 10th, Chris Laser Eyes Lysak himself. How you doing, sir?
Hello. I'm no longer in the basement. There's only one basement here, and he's awesome, and I'm not him anymore. So it's all going Jamie, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. And we have Nicholas from New Brunswick. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm not doing too bad. Actually, glad to be here tonight. Thanks to a last-minute growler purchase. I guess you could say I'm growling to try this one.
Everyone laugh while they're muted.
Boo!
Yeah. So the bill of goods for this beer, apparently it's got caramelized malts, Cascade, Willamette hops, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, cloves, and pumpkin. And really, that's about all there is to say about it, other than I can get it myself in 4-packs of bottles for $10.95 in the NSLC. As we go through the panel, they can tell you what version they got for whatever price. And we are going to get right into the beer now. So we will start with the albino rhino himself. He can talk about his history of the beer and how he rates it to style and how he rates it to his own personal taste.
Alrighty, so yeah, this is it right here. Yeah. The first time I had it was years ago when it was still known as the Great Pumpkin Ale, because I looked it up and they actually were the same recipe. They just changed the name. I like it. It's one of the better pumpkin beers you can actually get in Ontario right now. I mean, it has all the spices that you'd want, and none of them are really overpowering. It has a nice color. It has a nice smell. Chris actually picked these up as singles at his LCBO. I'm not exactly sure how much they were. I haven't paid him back for them yet. I'm going to guess in the $2.95 range. But yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit. Out of 10 on it, I think my palate has changed a little bit, to be honest with you, because I used to love it, and now I just like it. And I don't think really the recipe has changed all that much, but I'd probably give it a 8 out of 10, both stylistically and on its own.
All right, cool. We'll move on to Jamie, sir.
I actually am going to give it the same score, personally, 8 out of 10. I, against my better judgment, tried 5 pumpkin beers this year. It's actually been a few years since I've had one, and this was the second out of 5. Most of them are Ontario beers, but the one that I liked the most was Big Rig Tales from the Pumpkin Patch. Tales from the Patch Pumpkin Porter. I would say that was my favorite one. This second, and then the other 3 I had were all not that great. Great Lakes Pumpkin Ale, Grand River Highballer Pumpkin, and Lake and Bays Wild North Pumpkin Ale were all kind of shit, actually. And yeah, so I enjoyed this one. I would recommend it.
Nice. We'll move on to Gregory.
So I tried this beer for the first time in Either could be 2011 or 2012. I don't quite remember. I actually started my craft beer journey with pumpkin beer because I was just like, hey, I like Halloween. I like pumpkins. They got pumpkin beer. My God, who the hell would pay $5 for a bottle? That was how I thought back then. And yeah, I tried it the first year. I tried a bunch of different pumpkin beers. It's always been one of my favorites. To me, it's always like you got some really interesting pumpkin beers. You got pumpkin, which is basically pumpkin pie in a glass. You got some barrel aged pumpkin beers. You got like Sam Adams and I think Central City this year they have a imperial pumpkin beers, which are almost always good. This is none of those. This is just a regular pumpkin beer. And as far as I'm concerned, for a regular pumpkin beer, it's perfect. It's a 10 out of 10 on style. It's perfectly, it has all the flavors you want, but it's not overpowering. So many pumpkin beers are just like, oh, they've got tons of cinnamon or tons of nutmeg or whatever other flavors they are. Usually it's not pumpkin. It's very rarely pumpkin that you actually taste. But this to me is just perfectly balanced. If that's all I want is a 5% regular pumpkin beer, perfect for the style. Overall, I'd say I'd probably go 8.5 on it. It used to be a 9 for me. Not quite a 9 for me anymore, just because I have tried some of these really out there pumpkin beers that are a little bit more interesting. But doesn't take anything away from this. It's still fantastic beer, and if you're only gonna drink one pumpkin beer and you can't get pumpkin, drink this.
Did you say? Forgive me if you did. Did you say how much you paid for the single can?
Oh, I did not. And honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head. It was around $3, somewhere in that range. I mean, I could look it up. It'll be the exact same as Chris and Chad paid for it.
Okay.
And
I'll look it up right now.
And we can get this in. I think we can now only get this in cans. Up until I believe last year, I think we could get it in 4-packs, which I think were $9.95. But I think this is the only format it's in. It's in nowadays.
Yeah. I think we're probably the only ones who still get it in the bottles and 4-packs. Move on to Chris.
Sorry, it's $2.90 a can in Ontario.
$2.90 a can. Okay.
At LCB.
Yeah,
we'll move on to Chris.
Yeah, $2.90 a can. Yeah, I actually took a chance on this one because I bought 4 originally, and I gave Chad 2, and I gave Anna, one of the porters from work, 1 to try, and I took 1 for myself. And then I heard all this buzz about how great this beer is, so I went back to the LCBO today and I picked up 2 more cans. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of glad I did. This is fantastic. I mean, I had the Paranormal from Flying Monkeys yesterday, and it was delicious too. But for me and the high alcohol by volume there, it's just like too much of a burn. This is what I like in a pumpkin beer, and I'm gonna have to agree with Greg. If you're gonna pick one, this will probably be the one you want to have, and it's fucking good. I mean, there's probably going to be more coming out, if not already out, which I want to try. I want to try as much as I can. I mean, fuck, I'm new at this, right? I didn't mean to swear there because this is a PG show. And
kids watching.
Yeah, we do. All of them, all the drinkers. And you know what? I really enjoy the flavor of this. The spices aren't overbearing. There's not a lot of clove flavoring in this, and I really, really like this. I've had a few pumpkin beers now for style, 8 out of 10. For taste and my own personal enjoyment, I really like this. I'm going to give it a 8.5 for the pumpkin beer ratings scale, I guess, in my own opinion. See what I did there? All right, that's it.
All right, thanks. And we'll move on to Nicholas.
Last but probably the least.
Yeah, and you have it fresh out of a growler, so it's technically off tap. So
I'm actually having this off of a tap, and going back in the history of this, I had this once before. Well, I've had it a few times in the past because it's generally been available year in Brunswick for every year except for this one for some reason. But I think the first time I ever had it is when a friend Fuzz on my channel, he brought a bottle back for us to try from Nova Scotia. And at the time, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. It was one of the best pumpkin beers that I had ever had. Trying it again, I'm kind of wondering if maybe it's the freshness or something. I just feel like it's a bit more tart than I was expecting from a pumpkin beer, but it's still very nice. The spice profile is beautiful. Got this nice like molasses cookie finish. I think what I'm going to give it for a rating now is like back then, I think I gave it a 4.25 out of 5, so an 8.5. Now I'm going to give it about a 7 out of 10. But I still really like it. For the style, give it an 8 out of 10. It's one of the finest examples of a pumpkin beer you can get out there, period.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I think the first time I had this was whenever the fuck it showed up in Nova Scotia. It's been years now. I can't remember the exact year, but even back then it showed up in the 4-packs. So that's always what we've gotten is just the 4-packs for $10 or whatever it was. And I've just always remembered liking this one. It is just a standard pumpkin beer, but it's surprisingly complex for just a standard pumpkin beer. Like, if you just sort of drink it without thinking about it, some of the flavors sort of come together. I find they just kind of have like a almost a bubblegum kind of flavor, like the bubblegum you used to get at like card packs, trading card packs. But if you like dig deep into it and let it warm up, I find that the cinnamon comes out really nice without burning. Like Chris said, it doesn't have that kind of so spicy it burns kind of thing. It's just a very nice cinnamon taste, and it's got sort of an underlying just a bit of cloves. It's not big on cloves. And the end is pretty much your kind of molasses cookie, graham crackerish kind of finish. It's a little dry, a little tad earthy, but sweet at the same time. So, yeah, it works really well. You'd be hard pressed to find a better, just standard price pumpkin beer, I think, on the market. Really, it's not fucking pumpkin or anything like that, but it's not supposed to be. It's not trying to be. I would probably, for style, I'd probably give it 8.5. I'd probably sit around there with the style for around 8.5. And just personal enjoyment, I'd probably sit it at about an 8. I enjoy it when it comes around every year. It's not something I go and buy like 8,000 4-packs of or anything like that, but I do enjoy it, and I find myself buying it every year, every time I see it. So, I mean, I can't complain. So, if everyone wants to unmute their mics, and we'll just open it up for sort of final comments if anyone has anything they want to say about it.
You know what? I don't know what's going on with the pumpkins around here and especially in the Niagara region. I mean, we're not getting a whole bunch, and this used to be a huge fad the last few years, and now this year for some reason we're getting 4 or 5 maybe in the LCBOs. And
Chris, it's the same in Toronto too. They're surprisingly difficult to get this year.
I know, it's weird, and it's funny because this Saint Ambroise, this pumpkin beer, was available in one LCBO in St. Catharines. Okay, the closest one was in Vaughan, up in Toronto area,
wow.
And that's it. You couldn't get it in Niagara Falls. You couldn't get it in Welland. You can't get it in Thorold. You have to go to St. Catharines at the Fairview Mall, and they had 91 cans when Chad checked originally. So the next day, I ran over there.
Could be like New Brunswick, where you don't get it at all, except for in growler fills.
It's just crazy. And you know what? Maybe the whole fad thing of the pumpkin stuff is starting to wear down a little bit. Especially, well, maybe here in Ontario. I don't know what's going on over out east, guys. But with everything else being all pumpkin spice, fucking everything, cereal,
backlash
coffee,
against saying
everything.
pumpkin spice not cool anymore.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe the fad is just the fad. You know what I mean? They start.
I think you just live in a pumpkin wasteland.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Like we get our standard pumpkin beers every year here. Like we get the Propeller one, and it hasn't been good for years. The Propeller one, quite honestly. 9 Locks or not 9 Locks. 9 Locks had one this year, which was really good. That was the only sort of new one that came out this year. And then of course there's the Gahan one, which less said the better about because there's no pumpkin in it to start with. Yeah, I think the fad's just dead. Like, what would you guys say is even like the more prevalent kind of like fall winter seasonal kind of this year that you've seen more of any other style?
You know what? Like Harvest Ales.
Harvest Ales are
you know
always
you know what's coming out big around here right now? A lot of saisons and a lot of sours are starting to make their way out here in Ontario.
Yeah,
like lots. And
Every season is
a
saison season.
And every year, well, not every year. This year, I was really surprised, and you guys know it's my favorite beer at this time of year, which is the Vanilla Porter from Mill Street. But you know what? It came out real early this year. Like normally, last year I couldn't even find it until like late in like winter is here, kind of. Like, you know what I mean? And it's October and it's already out, which is great. I mean, they must be fucking loaded.
You know what I think is? I think there's a little bit of backlash, and I believe this is in the U.S. as well, is that in the last couple of years, like literally a lot of these pumpkin beers were making their ways into stores in July. And a lot of people were just getting really tired of it. It's like nobody wants to drink the beer in July, and then all of a sudden, unless it's really imperial or barrel aged or something, well, maybe in October it's not so fresh anymore. So I think there's a bit of a backlash, and I suspect this year that distribution, like I look around the places around me, and I'm in Toronto, so I'm fairly well stocked in beer. Generally, we got an LCBO every couple blocks, and it seems that more stores are getting them, like various pumpkin beers in our area. But it's still like each store only carries like maybe one or two. You get a couple that carry a few more. But in previous years, it was like I could go to my local the LCBO right by my parents' place, and there'd be like 7 or 8 different pumpkin beers I could get, including Pumpkin and Warlock, which have not made their way to the LCBO this year or last year, which I don't understand why, because they're both great.
No, I didn't find that, Greg. I'm actually I'm close to in an Oktoberfest area, and Kitchener-Waterloo has a lot of Oktoberfest celebrations, and there was a lot of Oktoberfest beers, a lot of pumpkin beers. And pretty much every LCBO, right when you walked in, the first display was all, the autumn display, and it was all just pumpkin and Oktoberfest. We were lousy with all of it. And I don't know if it's always been that way, because I've never really been one to seek out pumpkin beers. But it was no problem getting them in this area.
I guess I'm just spoiled, and I get annoyed if I have to drive to more than one LCBO.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as much. I don't think it's as much that that it's hard to get them as it is. There isn't many out there this year at all. There was GLB's Saison to Pump. There was GLB's Pumpkin. There was this one. There was the Highballer, and the Big Rig are basically the only ones that were in the LCBO. And then when you go over to
I believe there's 9 of them at the LCBO, and then I think there's a few that were not available at the LCBO. Nickelbrook had one. The Saison to Pump.
That's brewery only stuff. That's different. Like brewery only stuff, there are a lot of breweries that make a pumpkin beer. It's just what is actually available in the province everywhere. There isn't that much. And even if you went to Marzens, there wasn't that many Marzens this year. Usually there is like 25 to choose from. I'm not saying I'm angry about it. I'm just saying that it was weird, because usually this time of year the shelves are filled with both of them, and this year it wasn't.
We only got 2 actual pumpkin beers here this year in New Brunswick. We got Bridge Brewing's Pumpkin Porter from, I think it's BC, and we got the Highballer from Grand River. Technically, we got another beer like that. We got the brewery's Autumn Maple, which is amazing. We got brewery here, but technically that's a yam beer, so that's something else. Kind of similar, not the same.
Yeah, that's the pumpkin beer about it being a pumpkin beer kind of market, I guess.
And you see, it's fun. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's funny. If you actually go to the U.S., and Joe could better talk about this than I can, but if you go to the U.S., they take their pumpkin beers seriously. Like, you walk into, like, a good beer place, and they've got a lot of, I say, high-end stuff. It's all, like, imperial, barrel-aged, crazy, spice, all sorts of flavors. And we're all talking, like, 10-plus U.S. a bottle. But, man, they take their pumpkin beer seriously there.
Yeah.
And you've got about 30 different kinds to choose from.
Shit. We do have a lot of comments here, so we'll get through these to end off the show. We got Raining on Your Parade, Kent Beer Reviews, Jace Westcott, and Average Joe. So far, I see in the chat here. Raining on Your Parade says, would have had to drive 287 miles to get St. Ambrose Pumpkin Ale, but I picked up a pumpkin ale anyway. 2 Rhodes Mary's Baby. Oh, Rhodes Mary's Baby.
That's apparently supposed to be a really good pumpkin ale. It's
aged in rum barrels with vanilla beans.
Yeah, apparently it's supposed to be really good. Never had it.
Sounds pretty potato-ish.
Kent Beer Reviews says, good evening, Craig. And Jace Westcott's in here saying hello. Average Joe says he misses us.
Aww.
Nothing.
Yeah, and he says no more Battle of the Basements is very disappointing. He says, I demand Jamie rent out an apartment on the 10th floor of a random apartment complex and set up a studio. The rivalry must continue.
We're actually going to move in together.
Oh, okay.
Aww.
It's happening.
Jace Westcott says, if
You
Chris
like the
Peters
Hangover all over again.
I have a Fred Durst thing.
if Chris Peters had a finisher, it would be $1 million dream, and his calling card would be leaving a pickle on his victim's throat. That's,
Whoa. That's like
Whoa, that
Silence
would
of the
dark.
Lambs shim right there.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Joe is curious as to how many of you would get that unique bubblegum character. He said
I got it. Well, I got it when it was cold. Now it's warmed up. I'm not getting it.
Yeah, that's what I tend to find with it. If
The old peachy taste.
Yeah.
Bazooka Joe.
Joe says he can't get St. Ambrose pumpkin beer in the U.S. Only the oatmeal stout, and even that's rare nowadays. Let's see here.
I'm sure Joe is really lacking on pumpkin beers to choose from.
Joe can only get pumpkin and barrel-aged pumpkin and every other thing in the world, but
and rumkin and
no French pumpkins for him.
Average Joe says, watch the cussing, Jamie. This is a PG show.
Sorry.
That's what I want to
that was Chris who cussed.
I cussed first. I cut myself.
Yep.
You monster.
Sorry.
Joe says, honestly, the sheer amount of pumpkin beers available in the U.S. is sickening. I found about 80% of them be underwhelming, so I try to stay clear of most of them outside of a select few. Rating on Your Parade says, this Two Roads Pumpkin Ale is one of the best I've had, not a spice bomb, and the rum barrels are nice. My favorite pumpkin ale is Dogfish Head, not a major fan of pumpkin ales. Yep. Jace Westcott says, it's the opposite in Ontario. You really have to go to your way and visit 3 of the 15 LCBO stores in my area to even find a pumpkin beer.
That's crazy. I didn't find that at all. Like
It just depends.
I
I think it just depends on the area.
Yeah, like every LCBO had like 8 or 9 that I could lead with.
Joe says if Greg has to leave his house to acquire beers, he gets angry. GTA
This is true.
is greater than the rest of the world. There is nothing else.
Listen, my car uses a lot of gasoline, and I don't want to have to use it because that costs me extra money to go get the beer. Money I could be spending to buy more beer.
Or gas.
And to finish off, Jace Westcott says rip Gord and John Dunsworth. I didn't know they were related.
No. Rest in peace, Gord.
You know what? It's really sad that Gord Downey died, but you know what? There's one special thing about the fact that he died. In 100 years, he'll be dead by a century. And with that, we're going to thank you all for watching, and we'll be back either next week or the week afterwards with something else. The Macho Man will let you know what we're going to get to. Something decidedly
the Macro Man.
Macro Man.
Yeah.
The
Macro
calling
Man.
it. There isn't actually St. Ambroise and Nick's Growler. He's lying to us to get on the show.
If we find out that's true, we will string him up.
Label.
The rule is you actually have to have the beer.
There you go.
So,
See?
there you go.
Oh my
right.
God! He printed his own label. The bastard.
What a sick
This goes deep, Nick.
Wow.
That fucking
she said.
that UPC code is like fucking for like some tripod or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be back sometime.
Cheers.